Hey, this is Brooks with Character Design Forge. I thought I'd devote a video to answering your questions, and these are from two different sources. So over the last few months, you guys have been posting a lot of comments under videos and questions, so I'm going to answer some of those. And then earlier today, I sent out an email and a tweet asking for some questions, saying that I was going to do a Q&A. I just tweeted out asking for questions, and my goodness, the replies are not that many replies. I think because the number of followers on Twitter is very different from this ginormous number that I'm still not used to on YouTube. That's not a really big deal. Javid from Good Blood said, "Why are you so good?" Why are you so good, Javid? Seriously, is it like they just put talent in the water supply in Australia? Okay, so on to some real ones. Christian asked, how do you market your original characters? So what I think this comes down to is, first and foremost, making people care about your characters. You have to make them care, and that's kind of the point of a lot of videos on this channel, so I won't go into how you make someone care about your character. But I think the second part of that is that they need to belong to something. They need to have a story, they need to be part of a product or a project, and I'll be careful when I say the word product. This doesn't just mean make your character and then slap it on a bunch of t-shirts. I'm not really saying it like that, not that kind of product. When you just show someone a character by themselves, that has power. That gets people interested or intrigued. But in order for them to care about the character, you need to tell them more about it. You need to show them a story. You need to create some kind of world or narrative that your character fits into. So you might place this character into a comic. You might make an animation, a game, or even a hypothetical game. You might even create a series of figurines. Maybe you might sculpt those or create a limited run, but go back to the t-shirt thing, just be careful with that. Two questions that are a little bit similar from Plenty K and then my friend Brent Galloway. How do I keep inspired? What things like comics, shows, movies spark my imagination? So in the long term, the things that kind of have influenced me the most that are like outside sources of media, definitely between Disney's an easy one, but also Nintendo. All those guys behind me there. There's just something about the design philosophy and the way that they create iconic characters that it's a world that I love being in. So a lot of the times I will play a game, a Nintendo game or something along those lines, one that inspires me some, in order to get my inspiration, which is it's a dangerous thing to recommend, because you should be spending less time playing games and more time drawing, really, ideally, if you want to be serious about this. But for me personally, it's just a huge source of inspiration. This is probably a good opportunity to talk about things that I've liked from this past year. Zootopia is just impeccable. It's so good. I can never rewatch movies and not get tired of them. Zootopia, I never get tired of rewatching. Arrival is one of my favorite movies from this past year. Go see it if you haven't. It's such a good story and it's told in such a good way. I was surprised. I was so glad that I went to the theater and like felt surprised by something and also like deeply emotionally impacted. This is what good sci-fi is, when they take a concept that's fictional, that's science fiction, but like connect it back into this very human element. And it was, oh, so good. Most recently, the thing that has no right being as good as it is Voltron Legendary Defender on Netflix. It's amazing, and if you haven't seen it already, this is a show based on the old 80s animated series. But you know how you have a certain feeling when you're a kid and you're watching these things. For me, it was Transformers. I didn't really grow up with Voltron. But when you're watching them as a kid, and you even know then that they're not that good, but there's just a certain feeling about them, all transforming and shouting catchphrases and like just over the top stuff. This show, they actually said, the showrunners said that they tried to make it feel like those shows, but the character development, the depth of the stories is just way better than it should be. We love Voltron. It's so good. Also, I can't talk about inspiration without saying that media, films, games, those are all great, but the best inspiration is going to come from your life. Live your life, live it with people, experience your friends and family around you. That's going to give you the best sparks. The sparks are going to come when you're not looking for them. Next up, Dragami asked on my video about expression in character design, how would you go about drawing a character that has their eyes covered? For mine specifically, he's blind, thus wears dark glasses that completely cover them. So this isn't necessarily a problem. When a character has covered eyes, what I would recommend is relying on the eyebrows and the cheeks for expression. So I'm going to do this really poorly. If I covered my eyes right now, you can see with my eyebrows, those give a lot of expression, but also the cheeks underneath are doing a lot as well. If you're having trouble with your character expressing with covered eyes, I would suggest rethinking why their eyes are covered. Remember that you are in charge of this story, and so maybe in order to make the best story, you forego covering the eyes. Next up, the Glen 8, and also a lot of people honestly asking questions along these lines. This was just kind of the most succinct under my villains videos. Does the protagonist always need to be a good guy? Are there any movies or series where the protagonist is a villain and the antagonist is a bad guy? Yeah, so there are so many combinations between the protagonist label, the antagonist label, hero, villain, and you kind of want to avoid becoming too formulaic if you're just sticking to those things, but honestly, stories have a lot of different kinds of characters that use these labels. However, the shortest answer might be that a character who we follow, the story is told through the viewpoint of that character, who acts predominantly selfishly, is generally going to be called an anti-hero. Included in this anti-hero label are characters like Deadpool and the Suicide Squad. I didn't personally see those films this year, but I think it is somewhat interesting that as a culture we continue to celebrate the anti-hero character more and more. I'd love to answer more of your questions in the future, so feel free to leave a comment under this video or reply to me on Twitter @BagelDenizen. Feel free to follow me there. Also, in this past week, I've just revamped my Patreon page, patreon.com/BagelDenizen, where I will be posting exclusive videos just for Patreon supporters, like the ones on this channel. It's completely optional, but I really sincerely appreciate the people who have supported me there. The first video is one about flaws. So in my videos about what makes likable characters and 5 ways to make a likable character, we talked about flaws, and this video goes into the subject a little bit more. Oh, sweet. I just got a text from my wife saying she just bought tickets to Lego Batman, and she is picking me up for that. So I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Have fun creating.